In this episode, I want to move the question around a little bit. Why are people going no contact with their family? And I don't know what person you are. If you are a person who has no contact with their family, if you are a person who's completely neutral and who's wondering why are people going no contact with their family, or if you are somebody who's thinking about going no contact with their family, but I'm not really sure how to do it and if to do it, and or if you somebody who had no contact and contact again. So whatever, if this topic interests you about why are people doing it, and I'm giving in this episode my humble opinion of perspective of the matter as a person who has no contact with the family. So if you're interested in it, let's dive in, and I wish you a nice time listening. I mean, before I started taking the video, I was like, the question is even like, I don't know, it has even a sarcastic tone, because as somebody who has no contact with their family, and probably so many people who have no contact with their families, and they get asked this question, it's like, how to even explain, where to even start? You know what I mean? Like, why? Okay, I think to make it like short, of course, then after I will keep talking, but to make it short, because your own peace is the most precious thing, and it's more precious than anything. And if somebody has no contact with their family, it's never like a perfect family, and then you're like out of a mood, or because your parents didn't text you back or something, you're like, no, I'm going without contact. That's, you know, I mean, I know people, they have no contact with their family because, I don't know, there's somehow not a mutual interest or something. But for the most people who have no contact with their family, it's because it's just toxic. It's unhealthy, it's toxic, and you have to preserve your own peace. You have to preserve your own well-being, your own space. And in so many cases, especially when there was childhood abuse, neglect, and all this kind of thing, it's not like, so imagine you're 40 years old and you're deciding going no contact. It's not, like I said, out of a mood, you decide, oh yeah, now I'm feeling da-da-da. It's, imagine the whole journey before that, since birth. All the things that happen since birth can add up to somebody at some point in their life saying, I don't want to have any contact with my family. And people who have not experienced abuse will mostly not understand. So when we talk to people and we kind of say like, I don't have contact or da da da, and they're like, oh my God, why? And whatever. And you're like, I don't know, I just cannot even explain. And so, because I had experiences with people, they even knew a little bit about what was happening in my childhood or in my teenage years and whatever. They did not even know the whole story. They knew a little bit. And then still asking, but why? And this is so, it makes me even angry, because it's this kind of perpetrator loyalty that is, especially in this society, the one who is the abuser always gets protected. It's insane. It's fascinating to me. Like, I don't know, the example, it's, I mean, in all our history, for example, sexual abuse, the perpetrator mostly gets somehow protected, like, it wasn't him, and no, it wasn't as bad, and you know, uncle, whatever, you know how he is, you should, they let it slip, because they cannot face the reality, they cannot face the hard truth of what this person is or what they have done. And so, because the whole construct of, all the people they are involved in the issue, the whole construct of the how it looks like to the outside, the image, the image is really important to many people in this society. And if you have one person who is abusing their children in whatever way, I'm not going into detail here, but abusing them, and then with the most inner strength and the most inner will and self-preserving, I don't know the English word, but you want to protect yourself. With all of that, at some point you decide, and it takes so much to come to this point, to even decide, or to even come to the point, no, I think I want to leave these people out of my life because it just destroys me. It's toxic. It's like it never changes. To come to this point, it takes so much. And then other people telling you, yeah, but it's your mom, it's your dad. It's like, how can you do that? They raised you, and you should be a little bit more forgiving. What about forgiveness? How can you, like, come on, you old enough, you should be da. All this kind of thing. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have not experienced what you have experienced. So, first of all, if somebody asks you and you have experienced this kind of stuff, ask them, did you experience physical abuse or emotional abuse, whatever we're talking about here? Abandonment, like, there's so many subtle things. I'm throwing these intense words like abuse, and everybody thinks like there needs to be like beating every day. It's not like that. Abuse can be so much more subtle, and especially emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse. You don't see it. It goes unnoticed, but the damage is insane. So when somebody asks you why and is kind of questioning your decision, ask them, did you experience abuse in your childhood? And if they say no, then you're like, okay, we don't have to talk about that here because you clearly have no idea. And so that's first. Like, it makes me so angry. And even people who know a lot about what happened, and then they say, yeah, but there was food on the table. And you're like, yeah, oh, great. Yeah, that changes everything. The food was on the table. Of course, the bare minimum, in many cases, the bare minimum was there. Food, we had clothes to wear, we went to school. Yeah, sure. The basics, the how to raise or like grow, like make a kid growing so it kind of doesn't die. It grows into an adult, more or less. It was there. Yeah, sure, because otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. But the millions of things, they were not there. They are usually there in a healthy family, in a healthy relationship between a mother and a child, or a father and a child. Not there, not existent. So, and this makes it even so hard, especially when it comes about emotional abuse, because it's not, especially when you're older and you're coming to this point, I want to kind of clean up my past and I want to resolve these issues I have, because they come up in your life, of course. And then at some point you're like, okay, I have to deal with it. But you cannot really put your finger on something, because especially when it's about emotional abuse, it's mostly the things, they were not there. You cannot really point your finger to, oh yeah, when I was 10 years old, my mother was not there, because you don't really remember what not happened. You know what I mean? So it's really, really a tough topic, and I want to give a little perspective on, how to maybe decide for you if you want to go no contact, or how can we deal with this. So I don't know, like, first of all, does something change? And I know from my life and from my past and history, the years, the decades of trying to somehow get this love of the parent, And it's like cycles and cycles and cycles. And especially when it comes about narcissistic abuse and this really mean, evil stuff that's always targeting your self-worth, it keeps going. Usually, if nothing drastic happens, the people don't change. And you're always in this environment, and you going back to these meetings because that's what you do. You meet with your family, and this is how they are. You kind of find these excuses and like, this is how they are. I don't know. I should be more. And yeah, I can tell you maybe a little story about in my past, in my life. I don't know even how old I was. And of course, to actually you understand the whole issue, I would need to explain much more, but I don't do that now because it's more about the topic about cutting contact. So let's say physical and emotional abuse, almost for 20 years. And then you move out with 18. Well, I moved out with 18. Traumatized. Like, I didn't even know back then, but I was traumatized. I had no job. I was alcoholic. I was not seeing any perspective in my life at all. I didn't feel loved. I was just like, in this time when I was 18, I don't know, it was probably one of the worst times in my life. Gladly, I was together with my first boyfriend back in the day, so I had the chance to move out. Otherwise, where to go? So I was moving out, of course, no contact. It was a huge drama. But still, this pull towards your mother, towards your parents, is so strong because you want them to love you. It's like you want them to love you. It's your mother. And this toxic stuff goes on. It's not that you moved out and out of a sudden it's all beautiful and rainbow and whatever. Not at all. Like, not at all. And this is also what the whole podcast is about, the whole channel, that you move out with 18, but when you have the war inside of you, when you have trauma in your system and you don't deal with it, it goes on until you die, or you face it, you want to heal it, you want to resolve it. That's just how it is. It doesn't fade away, or it doesn't, somehow resolve itself. It's not. It's just impossible. So, and then I was always, I don't know, I was 20 something. And all the time I was going to these meetings with my mother, I felt really, really bad. I felt sad, depressed for days after, because of course the things didn't change. The comments, the mean comments, it was always, and you try to make a nice meeting happening and you would excited and stuff, and then it was always ending up in disaster, and you could not somehow change it. It's like, it must be possible to make it nice, or maybe if I'm really nice and you tiptoe and you like make compliments and you try to, make it, the effort it takes to try to make somebody love you, or to get this relationship going, where the other end doesn't even care, frankly. It's just crazy. So there came this point, I was being depressed again and sad, and I was talking to a friend back in the day, and he asked me a really important question. And the question was so good that it changed a lot. He was asking me, okay, so but every time you meet with your mother, you feel bad, right? And I was thinking like, yes. So, because I was thinking, was there any good meeting ever? And then I realized, no. So I said, yes, I always feel bad. And then the question was, okay, but if you always feel bad, then why are you meeting with her? And I was like, I don't know. And this moment changed something in my life. You see, it's so important. We can read so much stuff. We can get so much input about stuff, but we need good questions. We need somebody to ask us really good questions, because the answer has to come out of ourselves. It's not somebody has to tell you stuff. It needs to come out of yourself. You have to think and then give the answer to yourself. Then you really realize. That's the really powerful point to realize things. And then I decided, I'm like, and of course all the meetings were out of my effort. It did not come from the other side. So it was always me asking, can we meet? Can I come? Can I, whatever? And of course, 90% of the times you were rejected, or I was rejected. And then one day it was like, yeah, it's happening. So all these disappointments before, like, no, I'm sick, I cannot come, or they canceled last minute. Of course, no respect for your schedule, or you made like time, you took the day off or whatever. They just cancel, and yeah, that's just how it is. And then it's happening, the meeting. And I just decided, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And I was 20, let me lie. I was 20, maybe 2, something like that. And it changed in a way that, and I was 22, now I'm 38. So the process of letting go is a long process. It's not like, oh, we're letting go, and then we just let go and all is rainbow and sunshine. At that time, at 22, I let go a little bit. I let go of the effort for the meetings. I was like, I'm taking my attention away. I'm focusing on my own stuff. If she wants to meet, okay, but I'm not the one collecting the breadcrumbs and trying to, make it happen, because it takes so much energy to make it happen, to somehow get a hold of this person you perceive to be so incredibly important for your life. And this changed already a lot, like also energy wise. In this time, it kind of changed. There was not, I think she felt the pressure was not there anymore as much, or, energetically you pull back and there's like this kind of vacuum in the middle, and then the other person feels this vacuum and they're like, what's going on? Before there was like a pull or something coming from the other side. And if you take that back, there's like this vacuum and the other person can decide what to do. And unfortunately, in many cases, nothing's happening. It's not like you pull back and then all of a sudden you're like, I love you so much, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, doesn't happen, or did not happen in my case. But it was the first step towards freedom. And that's the most important part. And I was 22. And also, your surroundings, your siblings, sometimes they maybe they criticize you even. They're like, oh, how can you do that? And especially sometimes there's people, they were in the mess with you. So they know what happened and they're still criticizing you. Because they are, we have to understand the psychology of humans. We make these pictures in our world system so that it creates the least pain. So, and it's so complex, the whole topic of trauma and the personality you build in order to kind of make your life happen in a good way. But it's the picture you build about your sibling and your mother, and it's just so interesting. And so your siblings have this picture in mind, and in my case, I was the scapegoat always. Like I was the crazy one. I was the rebel who called the stuff out, who was standing there and saying like, you are insane. Like, this is insane what's happening here. This is, I cannot repeat the words, but I was saying it because I saw the toxicity of it and the damage it did to me. And even though I was rebelling against it and saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is not true, it took such a toll on my life that I had to, like, the healing process I had in the last 5 years was, it was the most intense thing I've ever did, apart from, of course, the actual stuff that happened. So your siblings will turn against you, maybe, probably, depending on the situation, depending on the family dynamic. And there we have to also understand the different roles family members take, like, you know, the golden child, the scapegoat, the middle child. And then, especially if you have narcissistic abuse, the narcissist has usually an enabler in the family who kind of helps. It's mostly when there's like some parents and one of them is narcissistic, the other parent is just also a victim somehow, and it's enabling the whole thing because they're too afraid of the perpetrator, narcissist, however you want to call it. And I'm not saying everybody's narcissist, but it's so widely spread and they're getting away with so much stuff. So family dynamics, family roles really all comes into play. And this is also why it's called complex PTSD. It was not one car accident and that's your PTSD. It's so complex, millions of variables coming in there, and it makes it incredibly complex to even discover the damage, the trauma, to even discover it, to really kind of know, because, like I said, so many things were not there. And yeah, and especially your siblings will turn against you, probably friends, whatever, and to listen to yourself, to really go inside and ask yourself, is that healthy for me? Is that going anywhere? Am I fighting a lost battle? And Tia Swan made this analogy once that you kind of in the desert and there's this fortress with a, let's say, metal door, and you're not coming in and you're just waiting there and sitting there and you're not coming in, but you want to get in because in this analogy, yeah, it's like the village inside, whatever. But for people who have been abused, and they still, of course, the love for parents is, you cannot break that bond in a way. And people are like, the children are trying, or teenagers are trying, and it's not opening, and you're waiting, and it's not opening, and you, maybe if I do this, then it's opening, maybe. And then, of course, all the strategies children are doing to get the attention, it's crazy. But at some point, when you really ask yourself, what helps? Like, how much did it change in the last 5 years? How much did the contact get better? Is it getting better? How much did it get better? Did you get positive feelings after the meetings, or were you always down? Because the abuse continues even after you moved out. So really ask yourself these questions, and then you don't have to break the contact up like tomorrow. It's a really intense process of letting go and accepting and creating your self-worth and your inner power and your inner strength. So you know that actually, and I'm saying that because I feel that now, and I have the experience of the last years of the whole letting go, actually, you don't need them anymore. It's not, you know, a need, because we're still so stuck, and especially when it's deep trauma there, our nervous system, our body is stuck in but I need them because this never got resolved. There's still this inner child inside of you who thinks, yeah, but I I need her to feed me, to cuddle me, to tell me I'm good enough. So this is this inner child inside of you. But when you think about it, you're an adult. You can feed yourself, you can buy yourself clothes, you can, all these things you can do by yourself. So from a really neutral, logical point of view, you don't need them. Okay. But still the emotional stuff. And then for me personally, and what I encourage everybody to do, and what the whole podcast is about, that like about empowerment, about listen to your intuition, to your heart, to yourself, because you are the precious being. And it did not matter, it doesn't matter what happened, because usually the parents, they are abusive, of course, also had an abusive childhood. But it doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't matter. It helps for the understanding and the whole process of making peace with everything, when you understand how the trauma travels through generations and like gets passed on and passed on and passed on. Usually your abusive parents didn't have any better childhood. But anyway, when we leave that aside, when it just comes about you, does this contact benefit you? Is that good for you? Or does it hinder you? Does it make you feel bad? And the energy-wise, when you want to break free, when you really want to find your own self and your potential, the true you, who you were before they broke you, or before all this happened, and you kind of like contracted, and you know, people change when they go through abuse. It's not, it's over and then you're coming out and like, oh, I'm out. It's not like that. It's a journey, and you can, especially narcissistic abuse that always targets your self-worth in subtle ways. Oh, you should wash yourself. Yeah, your skin, no, doesn't look so good. Okay, you should, you know, so many subtle things that just destroys your self-worth. And this is also why so many people, they don't dare even to think about breaking free, because they're so hurt in their self-worth that they don't even trust their own feelings anymore. They think, yeah, I'm just a depressed, I don't know, like, who's even listening to me? And like in my coaching in my coaching sessions, or in general on the retreats I was, or when I was talking to people in this kind of settings where we talk about stuff, the level of self-distrust and self-blame and all this is crazy. And this just shows me how effective that is. And I know it from my own life. Back in the day, how I was talking to myself back in the day, I would not even repeat on camera. It was so, I was exactly repeating what has been done to me, what has been said to me. I was repeating that, I was continuing that the years after, the decades after. And this is what we do if we don't wake up, if we don't see that and open our eyes and like, okay, what is going on? What am I doing here? And this is another topic of why are we copying this behavior? Why are we not, especially when we have been through abuse, why are we not nice to ourselves? We cannot. We inherited it. It's called introjection. I don't know, is that the right pronunciation? Introjection. You know, the opposite from projection. You take it inside. You don't project it outwards, you take it inside. And that's what victims do often, especially when there's like a long period of danger or abuse or these kind of things, in order to maintain, especially when there's like a strong emotional or like a dependent bond between them. They interject things in order to keep the relationship going. And of course, when you're 8, you somehow have to keep the relationship going because you cannot live by yourself yet. And you know that, you're really aware of that as a child, that you cannot just go and like, I'm out. Do this without me, I'm out. I tried so many times to do that. But what do? Where do you move? Where do you live? How are you going to eat? It's impossible. You have to wait until you can move out. But in all these years, so many things, they come into our system, and that's not our stuff. It's not our stuff. And now, the last 5 years of my healing journey and where I'm standing now, I can see clearly all the stuff that was not mine. And I had to get rid of. And I took drastic measures like hypnotherapy, trauma therapy, plant medicine, psychedelics, all this kind of stuff. Because for me personally, my life, I am too precious to live for the rest of my life under the curse of my past. It's like the life I was envisioning and the life I want to live, it was not possible in the way I was even 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. There was a big process, but it was not possible. And I think subconsciously we know that. We know there's something that holds us back. There's something that makes us tight. We are not really ourselves. And it's so precious when, in moments when we feel ourselves, when we are in a surrounding with nice people and they empower us. And out of a sudden, people come like, whoa, and you start laughing and you're making jokes and you, I don't know, completely different people sometimes. And then you come back to your regular life and you're like this. And I'm a strong person. I'm a strong person. But the way I was people pleasing to even my ex-partner, it's just crazy to me. How I was repeating the same people pleasing things like, would you like to have a coffee? Oh no, okay, yeah, maybe later. Even my voice changed. Sometimes I couldn't even recognize myself. So we need the contrast, we need the comparison, we need to see how we could be and how we are in the usual life, what we think is the normal us, but it's not the actual light and this is the actual rainbow and sunshine. That's us, like the core of us, our true heart. This is like the beautiful thing that needs to be freed. And so in my perspective, if you want to break free, if you want to find your true self, and you're thinking about cutting contact, also it does not need to be permanent. So let's say you're on the spot, you realize, okay, I have been through some really bad things and this kind of affects my relationship now, my life. I see I'm the depression, also just a symptom. It's not, and all this disorder, what psychology also calls disorders. For me, it's like, that's symptoms, normal symptoms. They appear when people go through traumatic stuff. But anyway, that's a different topic. So when you come to this point of, do I want to break free? Maybe let's say you say, I want to start a therapy, and you have this like in the next half a year or something. Maybe for this period of time, consider not exposing yourself to any toxic environment, because you really need this safe space. So these inner parts, the hurt parts, they can come up and they dare to show themselves. And this is not possible when you're in the same environment where the trauma happened or where you get hurt all the time. You cannot heal. And that's also why I moved out of Germany 2011, because I'm like, no way, I'm out of here. And I'm not saying everybody has to move the country to heal, but it helps a lot, because especially when you're traveling alone, you discover a you that you're like, oh wow, this is how I am, this is how I behave with people, they are like normal. Of course, it also takes a while for the whole rediscovery of your true self, because when I remember on my world trip, I was still having all the issues like depression, anxiety, and with other people, and because it was not healed yet. But you get this glimpse of how it could be, how you could be, and you get this taste of freedom. And once you got this taste of freedom, for me personally, I'm like, whatever it takes, however long it takes, whatever it takes, I'm gonna fight for it, for my own freedom. And if that means going no contact, then this is completely your legit decision. Of course, there are like complex things, like if you have children and they're like the grandparents and all this kind of complex stuff. But even then, if you have kids and you're thinking about, I cannot go no contact because they're the grandparents, and consider, are their grandparents good to your kids, or is it also a toxic influence? And really just question. You don't have to make decisions right away, but just question it. Sit down and maybe write it down, like, okay, what are the pros and what are the cons? Really question it, and then imagine a life with the no contact. For our nervous system, it's really tough because I think it goes against the instinct of a child to cut the contact. But you can somehow feel something in this time after, and you're not dying. Your life goes on, you do all your normal stuff. And to be honest, for me, I felt more empowered since and more peaceful than ever before. And in my case, since I was moving out, there was no contact anyway. It was just me trying, me texting, writing letters, visiting. I was on my world trip, always coming back to Germany just to see my family. On a world trip, just coming back to my family. Living in Switzerland, coming back to Germany to visit my family. For years, for more than 10 years, I always came back and I visited, and nobody ever came to come to me. And Germany and Switzerland, they're like, and these are all points we have to consider, and to really face the reality, like, okay, how much is coming from the other side? And maybe I'm better off without the influence. And even if there's like no contact anyway, the birthday cards, you never hear from anybody, but then there's this birthday card with just like a standard, like, happy birthday, da 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 da. And then you kind of feel guilty again for whatever. You feel guilty. And I remember always this feeling of guilt and shame I had. And I was like, no. And so there can be a life without, and it can be a beautiful life because you stood up for yourself. And I can remember my inner 16-year-old, like really angry 16-year-old, the rebel, like, how can you, the one who was always so angry, we have all these different parts. I have the really sad child inside of me, but also the angry 16-year-old, 15, 14 years old. When I got a little bit older and I could really articulate and kind of, I came out of the victim position more because I was also physically stronger. And what I was going to say, yeah. So you're angry in a 16 years old, and was, I could really feel how happy she was when I finally, me as an adult, inside me decided I'm not contacting anymore. I'm not taking cards anymore because it's ridiculous. And inside of me, the relief, all the parts of me, they were like, thank God, finally. You know, since childhood, the parts, they want to leave, they're like, and you cannot leave. You have to deal with it, even though it's abusive and toxic and violent. You have to stay. And this kind of breaks you inside. It's like you have to stay, even though leaving is the most thing you want to do, but you cannot do it. You have to stay there for the next whatever years. So this inner relief of like, I kind of cleared the space around me. Really precious, really amazing feeling. It takes some courage, it takes some strength. It took me years, it took me 37 years to get to this point. And I'm now more happy than ever. The door is open. I also communicated that to the people who are involved. I communicated that. Nobody replied. I'm like, okay. So if you want something, you know where I live. Nobody came in the last 10 years. Probably not going to come now. Whatever. Seriously, I come to this point like, I feel so free now and so clean and healed, and all these inner parts of me, they feel safe because I protected them. I was able to you know, protect them from the toxic influence. And yeah, maybe I can leave it at that. So take your inner parts into consideration. All your wounded children, they never got a sense of justice because it just keeps going. It just keeps going, and you're always still trying. You're always still trying. It's complex. It's difficult, and I would never advise anybody to go no contact. Not at all. It always depends on the situation. It depends on your being. It depends on your needs. It depends on everything. But really, really question it. Go inside yourself and think about what would you maybe advise a really good friend to do. And then let it sink in, and maybe wait a little bit, a week, and then maybe you can even write a letter. Write a letter where you explain stuff. You don't have to send it, just leave it, wait how you feel. You can always also say, I want to have no contact for maybe 2 months, or I have to think about stuff, for example. You can always, it's on your terms. You're not the one who needs to, you know, especially victims of abuse, they're always trying to, you know, the empaths, trying to, but if the other person feels bad, of course, but you felt bad your whole childhood in an exaggerated way. Of course, there were always good moments and also nice times and good holidays and this stuff. But the majority of the time, you know, we have to face the reality. And so question yourself and know that your inner peace is the most important thing. You don't have to protect other people's feelings for the rest of your life on the cost of your own dignity, of your own emotional well-being. That's the price is way too high, way too high. Don't pay this price. I've talked to people, they were older, they're like, I tried for so many years, for decades now, I'm 70 and I don't know. So really think about it. Go inside, and even if you decide, no, I want to keep the contact, then think about maybe what could you do that you don't feel as bad in these meetings, or try to kind of make adjustments to how it could work best for you. Maybe just a meeting once a month or something, and maybe not in their place, maybe just outside somewhere, where the energy is neutral. Think about what could work for you. And yes, I can just encourage everybody, and we have to really come to the self-worth and to our own empowerment. And the feeling I have now is just priceless. It's just absolutely priceless. The peace I'm feeling, but it was hard work. It was really, really hard work. And especially, with trauma therapy and all these intense things I did, like plant medicine and psychedelics, they bring up so much stuff that it's really intense for our system to process. But yeah, my dear, I hope I could give you a little perspective on that, and listen to yourself and listen to your needs. I know it's weird for us to talk about needs, because we're thought for so many years we could not even have needs, or we are needy and we're not supposed to have needs. At least I thought that until a few years ago. And yes, I'm sending you some love, and I'm sending you some compassion for whatever situation you're in. But I guess if you clicked on this video and the question somehow in the room, why are people going no contact, you might be involved in some way. And if you are somebody who has a brilliant relationship with their parents and they don't understand why people going no contact, just please, you are not in a position to judge at all. Even if you know the whole story, you cannot judge, because you have not lived through that, what somebody was going through for decades mostly. So don't criticize people who are having no contact. Don't, maybe ask interested questions if it's really interesting to you, but don't, but why? It's just crazy. This doesn't help at all. It's not helping at all. It's even making people who were victims feeling guilty and shameful and gaslighted again. And that's not what we want, right? So, my dears, I hope you had a nice almost sunrise. Isn't that beautiful? I'm so happy. And yes, I will walk down, and I hope I see you in the next video, and I wish you a really nice, beautiful evening and day. And let me know about your feelings, what came up for you in the comments, what you think about it, what your questions are about it. And yeah, I wish you a nice time. See you then. Namaste, my friends. Bye bye.